job descriptions and go, nobody has that. I'm as good a fit for this job description as anybody else in this universe because it doesn't describe any living human being, and so I'm going to go ahead and apply. And thus, you're going to deprive yourself of applicants who are qualified, and at the same time force yourself to wade through a lot of applicants that are not. So distinguish between the required and the desired here. This is going to feed into your job description when you go to hire. Okay, now, for the most part, these skills are rated on that 0 through 4 scale. I do want to point out that the work experience category is done in years rather than on that 0 through 3. Excuse me, I said 0 through 4 a minute ago. 0 through 3, I meant to say. So here we've defined in these columns, B, C, and D columns, we've defined the hypotheticals that we say, okay, we're hiring somebody, this is what we want, all right? And then what we've done here in the columns E through I is we've assessed the current team. We've rated the current team's capabilities, not with an eye to measuring them against the ideals. Okay, this is not a firing technique that I'm talking about here. You're going to go, oh, well, we've determined based on skills analysis that you're incompetent, Bob, so you're fired. You know, your team is what it is at this point, and you know, unless there are major competence issues that are jumping out at you based on work not getting done, I'm not saying that you should use this to fire, though you definitely should use this to guide your training process. Okay, so, and more on training, of course, in a minute. Now, so having done this analysis, we can then go through and we can look at two things, team minimums and team averages. Now, pardon me, I talked about test team organizational options in a previous webinar, so I'm not going to go back and repeat what I went over there. If you are wondering about this, how test organizational options intersect with skills, I'd encourage you to go listen to that recorded webinar, which is available out on the digital library. But the short version is that if you are trying to create a team of generalists, in other words, people where there are some defined positions, but for the most part you want people to be able to do the jobs that come along, then you want to try to have the team average skill for each of these critical skills. Because remember, this is based on a task analysis, so these are things that people actually need. You want to have the team average around 2 on the critical skills. And you also want to look at the minimums, because if you've got minimums that are that include zeros, you've got at least one person on the team who cannot do some tasks that come along, and that's something you need to look at. Now, if those tasks are sophisticated, things like creating automated keyword-driven frameworks, then okay, no big deal there. That's something you're going to call on specific people to do. But if we're talking about something like writing a bug report, no, I mean, this is a universal skill, and so any of those things that are universally applicable, of course, the team minimum of 0 is indicative of a significant problem. So you want to go through and look at those. You want to look and see if you've got those averages below 2 and the minimums of 0, and then based on that, you can identify where your team is weak. Now, I don't want to crawl through each one of these things, but as you can see here, we've got this team. We can identify in terms of domain for this hypothetical team doing word processor testing some weaknesses in terms of things like publishing and binding, say. Okay, so that's how you're going to do that. You're going to go through, look at those spots, and go, all right, now here's where I'm strong, here's where I'm weak, and then based on that, you've now identified the gaps in your team, and that should inform your hiring process. Okay, you want to hire people that are going to fill the gaps. All right, now college education. Do you want to include college education as a requirement? Well, geez, I mean, people are all over the map on this, and they tend to have very strong feelings about it too, which is interesting. So if we ask in a class, do you require your software engineers or your test engineers, excuse me, to have a college degree? We'll have people arguing vigorously both for and against that. So I think the jury is out, as the cliche goes. There is not an industry consensus on this, and I think on a case-by-case basis, people can make strong, defensible cases that it either is required or is not required. So I would encourage you to think about that. And also, if you do think that it's required or even desirable, think about what kind of degree you want to see someone have. Now, this sort of gets off into philosophy, you know, and I don't want to get into the debate that some people might have over this about, well, you know, liberal arts education is about making you think, and you really shouldn't come out with a specific set of skills. It's about expanding your mind and so forth. Yeah, okay, and I've heard it, and then I know that there are some of you out there probably who believe that and will advocate that. I don't want to argue it with you, but you know, if you believe that, then you do need to be able to make a case to management that, you know, this is why I'm hiring somebody who got a degree that's completely unrelated to software engineering or to the business domain. Now, I think if we start asking for specific business domain or software engineering degrees from people, that becomes much more defensible, both to management and also from a you know, being in the United States. I mean, from a wrongful non-hire lawsuit perspective, you know, and if you have to remember that if you fail to hire somebody who believes that they were qualified, and your job description is one that they can attack, if you will, in a lawsuit, that can happen. That's a risk. So, you know, think long and hard about this. Don't just throw something in there because it's the easy answer, though. We see this a lot where people go, okay, well, programmers are required to have a 4-year college degree in software engineering, so that's what we're going to require for the testers. Boom, done. You know, think about this a little more. I mean, one of our clients, for example, is oil exploration software, and they require degrees of their testers. Now, the developers have to have, for the most part, software engineering degrees, but their test manager will not hire testers who have software engineering degrees. They only hire people with degrees that are pertinent to the oil business. And, you know, the explanation that I got, this was something that had been clearly and carefully thought out, was, you know, I can teach them, we can teach them the technology that they need to know in the space of a few months. And I can make up for that. But what I can't make up for is a lack of understanding of how to do oil exploration. And that's something that you're going to have to get from a 4-year degree. So do think about this. Consider this topic, and whatever answer you come up with, be ready to explain it, articulate it. You know, if you're coming down on the side of, yeah, I want a liberal arts degree, I want somebody who knows how to think, then again, that's fine. But you know, be aware that there are skeptics about that argument out there, and I'm not the only one of them. And you'll have to explain it to people. Now, also, in addition to the degree, you might say, well, you know, what training? I mean, do I want somebody who's taken training before? And you know, RBCS, part of what we do is sell training, of course. So we're big fans of people who take training courses. But you know, I mean, it's somebody who presents you with a page-long list of all the trainings they got, the certifications that they got, and stuff. I mean, the pertinent question to ask